don't meet them there, they're coming here. I'm very aware they might be able to kill me.
It is a war that we've been on, but it's a war that may take 25 or 50 years. Our responsibility is to not leave anyone in the street that's going to kill us tomorrow.
Build ideology taught in some mosques, college campuses, and religious schools called madrasas. They use the internet, literature, television, even graffiti to attract recruits worldwide, and in some cases, captivating the boy next door.
Suffer the consequences in this world and the next.
Experts are uncertain as to how many of the world's 1.2 billion Muslims are militants who've joined the jihad, people eager to use violence to spread Islam.
Jihad. What is a jihad?
Jihad means constant effort to do something. Historically, it means constant effort on behalf of the Islamic State to expand that state or to defend that state. As long as there is a leader, that's the caliph or the emir or the prince, he has the discretion to launch that holy jihad, holy war.
Born and educated in Beirut, Dr. Walid Faris moved to the United States in 1990. He's a senior fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and author of Future Jihad.
In old centuries, when there was a caliphate or an Islamic state, someone like Osama bin Laden or Ayman al-Zawahiri declaring jihad on their own would be in jail. You can't do that. But now that there is no Islamic state, no empire, Osama bin Laden and his allies around the world are projecting themselves as the new emperors, the new caliphs, fighting the infidel.
Militant jihadis like bin Laden want to drive infidels, anyone who's not a Muslim, out of the lands where Islam reigned for centuries.
The real objective of the jihadists is to take back at least 1/5 to 1/4 of planet Earth and re-establish a caliphate.
They see the lands of Islam as being invaded and in part occupied by non-Muslims. And remember, when they talk about the lands of Islam, they mean all those lands that have ever been part of Islam.
Dr. Bernard Lewis is Professor Emeritus of Near Eastern Studies at Princeton University and one of the world's foremost Middle East scholars.
It is the duty of every able-bodied male Muslim to participate. Jihad is a collective obligation. It is an obligation of the community as a whole.
Today's militant Islamic leaders, Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri, Hezbollah Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, and Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, call themselves jihadists. They claim they're following the path of Islam's founder Muhammad and his companions, who established the first Islamic state some 600 years after Jesus. Muslims believe that God's word was revealed to Muhammad and is contained in the Quran. 30 years after Muhammad's death in 632, an internal schism split Islam between Sunni and Shia, but didn't deter the spread of the religion. In 1095, Pope Urban II called upon European Christians to recapture the Holy Land. The resulting military campaigns, the Crusades, would change everything.
The Muslim response to the Crusades at the time was minimal until the Crusaders committed the supreme folly of invading where Islam was born, where the Prophet lived and died.
Mecca and Medina, the holiest places in Islam, were now threatened by foreigners, and the call went out for a jihad to drive the infidels from the lands of the Prophet.
That aroused the jihad, which eventually drove the Crusaders out. This clearly saying, in effect, your time has passed, your religion is superseded, we are the fortunate possessors of God's final word, move over.
Despite this great jihad, Western influence was in the Middle East to stay. For centuries, European armies came and went at will, from Napoleon to the Kaiser's officers in World War I to the French and British. After the Great War, in 1923, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, ending the Caliphate. Three powerful factions of Islam emerged. A hardcore group of Wahhabi fundamentalists took charge of Mecca and Medina. By 1929, a second radical movement, the Muslim Brotherhood, had formed in Egypt. And in Persia, now Iran, Shia scholars asked their followers to rid the lands of the Prophet of Western influence. These three strains of militant Islam were brought closer together 3 years after World War II. 15 May 1948, the day after the Jewish state was proclaimed, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Iraq invaded, determined to crush the new nation.
It ended in a humiliating defeat. Now, I think it is that humiliation more than anything else which still rankles. It was bad enough to be dominated by the great empires of Britain and France, but to be defeated by a miserable gang of Jews is too much.
And what's happened in this humiliation is that the Muslims think that if they could reestablish their religion, they can defeat Israel and the United States.
Bob Baer was a CIA spy who served 21 years in the Middle East. He's the author of See No Evil and Blow the House Down.
They looked at Israel as a religious state. They said, well, maybe if we got religion, we're going to be able to compete with Israel and maybe defeat it.
In 1963, 11 Muslim governments recognized the Palestine Liberation Organization and its political military arm, Fatah.
Yasser Arafat and the rest of them joined the military wing, and they thought that they could liberate Palestine by using religion and arms.
June 1967, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Iraq amassed 500,000 troops, 3,000 tanks, and 800 aircraft to once again try to destroy the Jewish state. This time, the Israeli victory takes just 6 days, resulting in an Israel that's 3 times larger.
So the Arabs sit back and say, what did we do wrong? And they looked at Israel, driven by religion, and they said, well, we got to do the same with Islam. That is what's going to allow us to fight back.
Israel's stunning victory spurred the religious fervor of Islamic extremists, spawning a host of organizations committed to terror. September 1972, Munich, Germany. 11 members of the Israeli Olympic team are taken hostage by the Palestinian terrorist organization Black September. For a day and a half, the hostage crisis was a televised global event. In the end, as the games continued, all 11 Israelis were murdered. 5 of the 8 terrorists were killed and given state funerals by Libya's Muammar Gaddafi. A month after the massacre, Germany freed the 3 surviving terrorists when a Lufthansa airplane was hijacked and its passengers were used as bargaining chips. The Munich massacre and Israel's defeat of yet another combined Arab army in 1973 convinced Islamic militants that terror was the best way to capture the world's attention and motivate young Muslims to join their cause. Suddenly, angry clerics were attracting new followers.